They say revenge doesn't heal you. Maybe they're right, but it can wake you up. My name is Laura Porter, and a year ago, my husband left me for a younger woman after I got sick and gained weight. He told me I wasn't the woman he married anymore. He was right, but not in the way he thought. Because the woman I became? She didn't beg or cry or chase. She planned. And when I finally saw him again, he didn't recognize me. Not because I looked different, but because I wasn't his victim anymore. This is the story of how love broke me, and revenge brought me back to life. It's been almost a year since I got sick. 364 days to be exact. I count them, like a prisoner scratching lines on the wall. A year since my body stopped listening to me. A year since my clothes stopped fitting. A year since my husband stopped calling me beautiful. No matter what I do, the weight won't go. I've tried everything. Keto, fasting, workouts before dawn, cutting out sugar, gluten, joy. I even saw a private nutritionist who charged more per hour than my therapist. Everyone promised results, and still, the scale only moves in one direction. Some mornings I avoid the mirror completely. Other times I force myself to stare, to prove I'm not afraid of the truth. But I always end up looking away first. The truth is, I hate what I see. And what hurts most is that I can feel my husband James hating it too. When the illness started, the exhaustion, the pain in my joints, the swelling, he was supportive. He held my hand at every appointment, read articles about hormone balance, told me it wasn't my fault. But slowly, his patience turned into pressure, his concern into criticism. You have to take control, Laura. You used to care about how you looked. It's not healthy to give up. He says those things quietly, almost kindly, like advice. But I can hear the disgust hiding underneath. Last week, we went to dinner with his business partners. I wore a black dress that used to make me feel confident. Now it just makes me feel like I'm hiding inside a shadow. When I sat down, the fabric pulled too tight, and James's eyes flicked toward my stomach. Just one glance. That's all it took to ruin the night. He laughed with everyone, refilled their glasses, leaned toward the waitress when she smiled at him. And I just sat there, invisible, wishing I could shrink into my chair. When we got home, he said nothing. But when he walked past the bedroom mirror, I saw his reflection watching mine. I turned off the light first. Tonight, I tried to run again. 30 minutes on the treadmill, sweating, crying, begging my body to change. But the truth is, I'm not sure what hurts more anymore, the sickness or the shame. I don't even want to be thin. I just want to stop feeling like I've failed someone. Before bed, I walked into the bathroom, turned on the dim light, and looked at myself again. The same tired eyes, the same body that refuses to obey. I whispered so quietly that even I could barely hear it. Please just let me be enough, just once. From the hallway, I heard James's voice, flat and impatient. Turn off the light, Laura, you'll wake me up. I did. And in the dark, I wondered when exactly love started sounding like an order. When the doctors first told me about the illness, James was everything I needed him to be. Calm, kind, reassuring. He took time off work, made me tea with honey, sat beside me at night when I couldn't sleep. He used to stroke my hair and whisper, "We'll get through this. You're stronger than you think." And I believed him. For a while, his love felt like a shield. I thought that even if my body betrayed me, at least my marriage wouldn't. But love, I've learned, can change its temperature without warning. What starts warm can slowly turn cold, and you won't even notice until you're shivering. At first, it was small things. James started asking what I'd eaten that day, casually, like he was just curious. Then he'd frown at my plate, saying, "Maybe skip the carbs tonight, yeah?" He began printing meal plans from fitness blogs and sticking them on the fridge. I told myself it was his way of helping. He even bought me a gym membership, personal trainer included. "It'll be good for you," he said, smiling. But it didn't feel like encouragement. It felt like a test I couldn't pass. Every week I'd step on the scale, praying for progress. When I didn't lose enough, his silence was louder than any insult. When I lost a pound or two, he'd say, See? It's not that hard. I started counting every calorie, recording every step like I was earning his approval one number at a time. But no matter how much effort I gave, I always came up short. One night, after a long day of work and another disappointing weigh-in, I broke down in the kitchen. I told him I was trying, that I felt hopeless. He didn't hug me. He didn't even look up from his phone. "You're making excuses, Laura. You just need discipline, that's all." Discipline. That word became the anthem of our marriage. Repeated so often, it lost all meaning. He started checking my food delivery history, asking how long I stayed at the gym. He said it was because he cared, because he wanted me healthy. But love doesn't look like surveillance. Love doesn't make you afraid to eat dinner in your own home. By the time spring came, we weren't really talking anymore. He was always busy. His phone was always face down, and when he did speak, it was about my progress, or the lack of it. Sometimes I'd wake in the middle of the night and find him scrolling on his phone, the glow of the screen reflected in his eyes. When I asked who he was texting, he'd just sigh and say, "Don't start, Laura." So I stopped starting. I stopped asking. I stopped expecting softness. And quietly, without realizing it, I started mourning a marriage that was still alive, at least on paper. Somewhere between late spring and summer, something shifted between us. James stopped touching me. Not in anger, not in disgust, just indifference. He'd brush past me in the hallway like I was a stranger, not the woman he once couldn't fall asleep without holding. He started coming home later, always with the same excuse. Meetings ran long, or I had to grab a drink with clients. At first, I believed him. Then I stopped asking. I told myself he was stressed, that the business was demanding, but deep down, I knew it wasn't the workload keeping him away. It was me. The first time I overheard him talk about me, I was in the kitchen, cutting vegetables for dinner. He was in his office, door slightly open, talking to a friend on speakerphone. I wasn't trying to listen, but I heard my name. "She's just different now," he said. "I don't know. She's let herself go. I can't even talk to her without it turning into drama." His friend said something I couldn't hear, and then James laughed. The kind of laugh you use when you're embarrassed. That sound broke something inside me. It wasn't the words. It was the ease with which he said them. Like my pain was just small talk. That night, I couldn't eat. I served his dinner, cleaned up, and went to bed without saying a word. He didn't notice. Or maybe he did, and just didn't care. Over the next few weeks, our home turned into a museum. Polished, quiet, cold. We moved around each other like ghosts, polite but hollow. The only time he seemed to remember I existed was when we were around other people. At dinners or company events, he'd put a hand on my back, smiling for the cameras, playing the perfect husband. But his words always found a way to sting, wrapped in humor sharp enough to draw blood. "Laura's on a new diet again," he'd joke. "We'll see if this one lasts longer than the last." Everyone would laugh politely. I'd smile too, because what else could I do? Defending myself would only make me look fragile, bitter. So I became quiet, careful, small. I started eating less, talking less, existing less. It was easier than feeling the constant disappointment in his eyes. Sometimes at night, I'd sit in the dark living room, listening to the ticking clock. I'd remember the early days, when he used to pull me close, whispering that I was his everything. Now the only thing between us was silence. Once he came home late, the smell of perfume on his jacket. When I asked, he said it must have been from someone at work. He said it calmly, as if I were stupid to question him, and I realized then he wasn't even lying convincingly anymore. He just didn't think I'd do anything about it. He was right, because by then I didn't have the strength to fight. All I wanted was peace, even if it meant pretending nothing was happening. It happened on an ordinary Thursday. Nothing special about the day. Gray sky, half-drunk coffee, the hum of the washing machine in the background. James had left his phone on the kitchen counter while showering. Normally, I wouldn't have looked. Even after everything, I still respected privacy. Maybe because I believed that pretending to trust was easier than admitting I didn't, but when the screen lit up, I saw her name, Sophie. I knew her, 25, fresh out of college, his assistant, polite smile, nervous laugh, always a little too eager when he called her into meetings. He mentioned her often in passing. Sophie handled the files. Sophie's learning fast. I never thought much of it, until that morning. A message preview glowed on the screen. Can't stop thinking about last night. You still taste like wine. My chest tightened. My hands shook as I unlocked the phone. No password, as if he knew I'd never dare to look. But I did. There were dozens of messages, weeks worth, photos, voice notes, words that once belonged to me. You make me feel alive again. I hate leaving your bed. Don't wear that dress to work. I won't be able to focus. Every message felt like a new wound. I read until my vision blurred, until the letters swam together. When James walked into the kitchen, towel around his neck, I was still standing there, phone in hand. For a second, he froze, then exhaled slowly, as if he'd been expecting this. "Laura, don't make this a scene." A scene. As if finding out your husband's been sleeping with someone half your age was a scheduling inconvenience. "How long?" I whispered. He didn't answer, just looked at me, cold, detached, and then, almost casually, "You've changed, Laura. You're not the woman I married. I tried to make it work, but I can't keep living like this. Like this. Like me." I don't remember what I said next. Maybe nothing. The words tangled somewhere between my throat and my tears. He packed a small bag that night. Didn't even look around the house one last time. Didn't say he was sorry. Just walked out, closing the door behind him with a quiet click that sounded louder than any fight we'd ever had. The next morning, his closet was half empty. The smell of his cologne still lingered in the air. Sharp, expensive, heartless. On the dresser, I found his wedding ring. He'd left it next to my hairbrush, like a final insult. I sat on the bed, staring at it, waiting for the pain to peak. But it didn't. It just stayed. Heavy, constant, like breathing in smoke. Somewhere outside, a car door slammed, an engine started, and life went on. Mine didn't. Not yet. The days after James left blurred together. Morning, night. They didn't feel different anymore. Time became a loop of silence, replaying the same ache over and over. I stopped opening the curtains. The house was too bright without him, too empty with him gone. I lived in pajamas, surrounded by half-finished cups of tea and untouched food. People called at first, then stopped. Pity fades fast. I told myself I was fine, that I just needed rest. But my body disagreed. My chest felt heavy all the time, like I was breathing through wet cloth. My heart raced without warning, sometimes from panic, sometimes from nothing at all. The pain wasn't just emotional, it was physical. I could feel it, in my bones, in my skin. It felt like grief had moved in, and my body was its new home. I avoided mirrors now, not because of how I looked, but because of what I'd see in my eyes. Failure, humiliation, a woman who wasn't chosen. Sometimes I'd wake up thinking I heard James's voice downstairs calling my name. Then I'd remember. He was gone. Probably laughing somewhere, holding her hand. And I was still here, counting hours, measuring pain. One afternoon, the doorbell rang. When I didn't answer, it rang again, and again. Finally, I opened the door. And there she was, Hannah, my best friend, my mirror from the past life. Before the sickness, before the marriage became a battlefield. She didn't say a word, just looked at me, then walked straight inside, carrying groceries and a determined expression. "You look awful," she said softly. "Which is fine. You're allowed to look awful, but you're not allowed to disappear." I tried to smile, failed, and started crying instead. She didn't hug me right away. She just started unpacking groceries, talking as if it were any normal Tuesday. She made soup, opened windows, threw away the empty cups. Her calmness was a kind of mercy. When she finally sat beside me, she didn't tell me to move on or forget. She just said, "You spent years being who he wanted. Now it's time to be who you need." I didn't answer, but that sentence kept echoing in my mind for days after. At night, when I couldn't sleep, I repeated it like a prayer. Who do I need? Who am I without him? The first morning I ate breakfast again, Hannah smiled like it was a miracle. The second morning I opened the curtains. The light hurt my eyes, but I didn't close them. It wasn't healing, not yet, but it was something. And in a strange way, the silence in the house started to feel less like punishment and more like space. Space for air. Space for something new to grow. Grief doesn't leave all at once. It fades like fog, slowly, unevenly, revealing pieces of life underneath you'd forgotten were still there. Months passed. The house stopped feeling like a graveyard. Some mornings I even woke up without that heavy ache in my chest. It started small. A walk around the block, a trip to the market, a shower that didn't end in tears. Every day, a little less numb. I didn't plan to change my life, I just wanted to survive it. But survival has a way of turning into something stronger when no one's watching. I began walking every morning. At first, just 10 minutes, then 20. I'd listen to music, podcasts, anything that filled the silence James left behind. At some point, I realized I wasn't walking to lose weight anymore. I was walking because it made me feel alive. Food stopped being the enemy, too. I started cooking again. Not sad salads or guilt meals, but real food. Omelets with herbs, roasted vegetables, even pasta on Fridays. I didn't count calories. I just tried to listen to what my body wanted, not punish it for existing. And slowly, it listened back. The pounds began to melt away. Not fast, not dramatically, but naturally. One day I caught my reflection in a shop window and froze. My face looked softer, younger, peaceful. It wasn't about the number on the scale. It was the way I was standing, straight, confident, unafraid. For the first time in years, I recognized the woman looking back. When Hannah came over one Sunday, she noticed it immediately. "You look different," she said. "Not thinner, happier." I laughed, a sound that felt unfamiliar and new at the same time. A few weeks later, I got an email from an old colleague asking if I'd consider taking on a marketing project as a consultant. The thought terrified me. I hadn't worked properly since before the illness. But I said yes. Work gave me structure again. Goals, people, purpose. The first client paid me, and I stared at the transfer confirmation like it was proof of life. I started redecorating the house, too. Nothing dramatic, just lighter curtains, new plants, a brighter rug in the living room. With every small change, it felt like I was rewriting the story of this space, reclaiming it from ghosts. Sometimes I'd think of James, not with pain, just curiosity. Did he ever wonder what became of me? Did he still tell people I let myself go? Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. But it didn't matter anymore. For the first time in years, I wasn't trying to earn anyone's approval. I wasn't counting calories, steps, or the days since he left. I was simply living. And for the first time, that was enough. It happened on a Friday afternoon, the kind of day that felt too ordinary for something life-changing. I was at a networking event downtown, invited by a client I'd recently started consulting for. Rows of white tables, polished glasses, polite laughter. The kind of environment I used to dread when I was married to James. Back then, I always felt like a decoration, not a person. This time, I felt different. I wore a cream suit, soft hair falling over my shoulders, light makeup. Just enough to look awake, not trying. For once, I didn't care who was watching. Until I heard a familiar voice. Deep, confident, too familiar to mistake. When I turned, my breath caught. James. He stood across the room, surrounded by a small group of men, drink in hand, the same expensive watch, the same practiced charm. But when his eyes found me, everything stopped. He froze mid-sentence. The smile slipped. For a second, he looked genuinely stunned. I didn't move. I didn't smile. I simply met his gaze, calm, unflinching. and then turned back to the woman beside me, continuing our conversation as if he didn't exist. Minutes later, I felt his presence behind me. "Laura?" His voice was hesitant, like saying my name hurt a little. I turned. "James, it's been a while." He looked me up and down, trying to hide his shock. "You look incredible. You've changed." I smiled politely. "So have you." We spoke for less than a minute. About work, life, the weather. All safe topics, all meaningless. But his eyes couldn't stop tracing me, as if trying to reconcile the woman before him with the one he left behind. When the event ended, he waited near the exit. "Can I call you sometime?" I pretended not to hear and walked past him. That night, his message arrived. "You looked beautiful today. I've missed you. Can we talk?" I stared at it for a long time. Not because I wanted to reply, but because it amazed me how little power his words had now. Once, a message like that would have sent me spiraling, heart racing, hope rising, waiting for crumbs of affection. Now it just felt empty. I deleted it. But the next morning, another came. Then another. "I made mistakes, Laura. I think about you all the time. I shouldn't have left. Each message more desperate than the last. I ignored them all. Still, a part of me couldn't help but wonder. Was this regret? Or just nostalgia for the version of me he could control? I didn't know. But I did know this. For the first time, I wasn't the one waiting. The messages kept coming. Every few days, another one. Short at first, cautious, like he was testing the temperature of water he once poisoned. "I made a mistake. Sophie's gone. I miss you, Laura." I didn't answer. Not because I didn't have words, but because I didn't owe him any. Then, one afternoon, he called. I almost declined it. But something inside me, curiosity maybe, or closure, made me pick up. His voice was softer than I remembered. "Laura, I know you don't want to hear from me. I needed to say it. I messed up. Sophie wasn't—" I cut him off. "Don't." There was silence, then a sigh. "She left me," he said finally. "It wasn't what I thought it would be. I thought I wanted excitement, but it was all shallow. You were real. Real." That word stung more than I expected, as if my pain had been reduced to a lesson he learned too late. "You didn't lose me because you made a mistake, James," I said quietly. "You lost me because you didn't care when it mattered." He didn't argue. He just said, "Please, let me make it right. Can we just talk?" I hung up. But for the rest of the night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Not because I missed him. I didn't. It was because hearing his voice made me remember everything I had survived. Every cruel joke, every cold glance, every silent dinner. And deep beneath the calm I had built, something sharp stirred. The next morning, Hannah came over with coffee. She took one look at me and frowned. "He called, didn't he?" I nodded. "Laura," she said, shaking her head. "Closure isn't always found by reopening old doors." "I know," I said. But my voice betrayed me. Too calm, too thoughtful. She leaned closer. "What are you thinking?" I smiled faintly. "Nothing." That wasn't true, because part of me, the part that once cried on cold kitchen tiles, wanted to look him in the eye and make him feel what I'd felt. He'd built his world on control, on the illusion of perfection. He left me when I was broken. What would happen if he saw me whole again? Only to realize he'd already destroyed his chance. Revenge didn't come as a sudden idea. It came quietly, like a seed taking root. Not out of hatred, but out of balance. For months, he had shaped my pain. Now, maybe it was time I shaped his. That night, I scrolled through his messages again. "I miss you. I still love you. Please let me see you." I typed 2 words back. "Let's talk." And as I pressed send, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Control. Meeting James again felt strangely easy. Too easy. He chose a quiet cafe, the same one we used to visit on Sundays years ago. When I arrived, he stood up too fast, as if afraid I might vanish if he blinked. "You look amazing," he said softly. I don't even know what to say. I smiled politely, stirring my coffee. Then don't. He laughed nervously, mistaking my calm for forgiveness. He told me he'd changed, that losing me had opened his eyes, that Sophie was gone, and he finally understood what love really meant. I didn't believe him, but I didn't argue. I just listened, nodding occasionally like I was considering the possibility. That was all he needed. Hope. Within a few weeks, he began calling every day. Dinners followed, then long walks, then flowers on my doorstep. He thought he was winning me back. I let him think that. Eventually, he suggested I come back to the company, as a consultant, he said. Someone I trust. I hesitated just long enough for it to seem difficult. Then I agreed. The first day I walked into his office again, Sophie's desk was empty. James gave me a tour like I was a guest, not the woman who used to sit outside waiting for him to finish late meetings. He still had the same habits, the same arrogance wrapped in charm. But now, I saw the cracks, the way his business was struggling under the surface, the loans, the delayed payments, the desperate optimism. He needed me, far more than I ever needed him. So I helped. I worked late, cleaned up his messes, restructured deals. He praised me endlessly. You're saving me, Laura. I don't deserve you. He was right about that. While he slept beside me again, convinced our life was healing, I studied everything. Contracts, shares, accounts, every document I could access. I found the loopholes he'd used to cut me out years ago, and I rewrote them. Quietly, legally. Piece by piece, I took back what he'd taken from me. And then, a little more. It took months. Months of pretending to forgive. Months of smiling at the man who once humiliated me in public. And then, one morning, when everything was in place, I packed a small bag. No tears. No drama. On his desk, I left a file. Signed, sealed, irreversible. The transfer of ownership for the company's assets, all perfectly lawful. And a note, you wanted me perfect. I just became unstoppable. I didn't wait for his reaction. I turned off my phone, left my keys on the counter, and walked out. The sun was rising as I stepped outside, pale, quiet, peaceful. I felt no guilt, no fear, no regret, only freedom. For the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to prove my worth to anyone. I had simply taken it back. He found me 3 days later. I was sitting by the ocean, coffee in hand, watching the waves move in slow rhythm. Calm, endless, free. When I turned, I saw him, James. He looked nothing like the man who once walked out of our home without hesitation. His face was pale, drawn. His hair, once perfectly styled, now messy, streaked with worry. The charm was gone. For the first time, he looked small. He stopped a few steps away, breathless. Laura. I didn't speak. He stepped closer, holding out the file I'd left behind. What is this? What the hell did you do? His voice cracked between fury and disbelief. I just looked at him, steady, silent. You ruined me, he shouted. Everything I built, gone. I trusted you. I tilted my head slightly. You mean like how I trusted you? He froze. His mouth opened, then closed. The truth hung heavy between us, wordless and sharp. He tried again, softer this time. I love you, Laura. I always did. You have to believe that. I almost laughed, not out of cruelty, but out of disbelief. How easily men like him confuse love with ownership. I stood up slowly, brushing the sand off my coat. If you loved me, you'd have loved me in any weight. He blinked, silent. But you didn't. You only loved the version of me that looked good next to you. The version that smiled through your cruelty and starved for your approval. His voice cracked. I made mistakes, but I wanted you back. I tried. I met his eyes, calm and unshaken. No, James. You wanted to fix your image. You wanted me beautiful again so you could believe you were the man who never failed. But here's the thing. I stepped closer, close enough for him to see the steady certainty in my eyes. You only wanted me beautiful, so think of it this way. I only wanted you rich. He stared at me, stunned. I smiled softly. And now that you're not, we're even. I turned away. Behind me, I heard him call my name, his voice breaking into the wind. But I didn't stop. The sound of waves swallowed his words, and for the first time in years, they didn't echo inside me. I walked until his voice disappeared completely, until all I could hear was the sea. Endless, peaceful, mine. Standing at the edge of the shore, I breathed deeply. The salt air filled my lungs, sharp and clean. Maybe forgiveness is freedom, but so is justice. I just chose my version, and this time, I wasn't sorry. It's been a year since the day I walked away from James on that beach. A year since I stopped measuring my worth through someone else's eyes. Life feels still now. Not empty, just calm. I rent a small apartment by the sea where mornings begin with sunlight on my curtains and the smell of fresh coffee. There's no tension in the air, no silence heavy with judgment. Just quiet. Just me. I started running again, not out of guilt, but joy. My body isn't perfect. It probably never will be. But it moves freely, and that's enough. Some mornings I sit on the balcony with my laptop, working with clients who actually respect me. Other days I close it early, walk along the shore, and remind myself how far I've come. People often say revenge doesn't heal you, and they're right, at least partly. It doesn't erase the hurt. It doesn't make you forget the nights you cried yourself to sleep, or the words that cut too deep to fade. But it does something else. It restores balance. James took my confidence, my peace, my sense of control, and I took them back. Not because I wanted him to suffer, but because I wanted to finally stop suffering myself. Sometimes I still see his name pop up online, an article about his failed company, a photo from some event he tries to look confident at. I don't feel anger anymore, just distance. He reached out once, months ago, a short message. I hope you're okay. I didn't answer, because I am okay, just not in the way he'd understand. Hannah visits often. She says I've changed, not my body, but my energy. You finally look like you live for yourself, she told me last week. Maybe that's the real ending, not revenge, not forgiveness, but returning to yourself. I've started painting again, something I gave up years ago because James said it was a hobby, not a skill. Now my apartment walls are filled with soft colors, ocean blues, sunset golds, gentle whites. When I paint, I think about the woman I used to be, the one who whispered in the mirror, "Please just let me be enough." If I could speak to her now, I'd tell her she always was. She just had to stop asking for permission to believe it. The sea outside my window shifts between calm and wild, never constant, never predictable. I like that. It feels honest. And sometimes, when the light hits the water just right, I think, maybe that's what healing really looks like. Not perfection, not victory, just peace.